What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another very exciting video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at Activision Blizzard. And Activision Blizzard had some good news come out of Europe with its merger deal with Microsoft, and that is what sent the stock up almost 6% in a single trading day. So what we're going to do in this video is we are going to take a look at what that news was out of Europe. We're going to take a look at how it could affect the Activision Blizzard Microsoft deal, and then we will end the video by taking a look at what is the risk reward ratio still left with Activision Blizzard. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. As I mentioned in the intro, Activision Blizzard is up around 6% in just the last couple trading days. If we look at the last year, it's basically traded sideways, only up 5.5%. There was some volatility around the October-November timeframe, as there were some concerns about whether this deal would go through. But if we look at these lows for the year of around $71, we can see that the stock since then is up around 20%. As a refresher, around a year and a half ago, Activision Blizzard was going through a lot of issues with the media around the overall culture at the company kind of being a boys club, and there were even lawsuits against members at the company. And what we saw is this had a huge effect on the stock price. So the stock went from around $104 all the way down to around $57, and that was around a 44% move down. And then since then, what happened is Activision Blizzard and Microsoft announced this acquisition deal. So Microsoft announced that it was going to acquire Activision Blizzard at $95 a share, and we saw the stock run up in a massive way immediately. And then since then, basically it's been going through FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, looking at it to make sure it's not creating a monopoly, and then also places in Europe, around the world, really looking at Activision Blizzard and Microsoft and seeing if this creates a lack of competition in the overall marketplace. And with all of that, we've seen the stock basically run up around 50% from its lows, but really just trade sideways over the last year. And the shares of Activision Blizzard jumped as British competition regulator drops key concern on Microsoft's takeover. The CMA, and the CMA is UK's Competition and Markets Authority, said it no longer believes the deal would lead to a substantial lessening of competition in the console games market. Back in February, the CMA published provisional findings from its probe into the takeover, stating at the time that the transaction may result in higher prices, fewer choices, and less innovation. However, just last week, Martin Coleman, who is part of the panel of experts who's looking into this acquisition, said, having considered the additional evidence provided, we have now provisionally concluded that the merger will not result in a substantial lessening of competition in console gaming services because the cost to Microsoft of withholding Call of Duty from PlayStation would outweigh any gains from taking such action. And Call of Duty is the big concern for this acquisition, and mainly that concern is coming out of Sony. Sony does not want Microsoft to take Call of Duty and make it an Xbox exclusive where you can only play it on Xbox. A lot of these other franchises that Activision Blizzard has, they are very cross-platform. So World of Warcraft, that's primarily computer. Diablo, also computer. Candy Crush phone. Hearthstone phone. And then Overwatch is also very big on the computer. So really, Call of Duty is the main one that's under focus because it is very console driven. So what Microsoft has done to really mitigate some of these risks is they've gone to a lot of these competitors and actually tried to sign deals. So Nintendo, they signed a binding 10-year legal agreement to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo players. They also actually went to Nvidia, and Nvidia, they have a GeForce Now cloud gaming service, so they signed a deal with them as well. The last person is Sony. So Sony is basically holding out. So the company, as in Microsoft, has actually offered Sony the same agreement as they did Nintendo, so a 10-year deal. But right now, Sony is really fighting back, so they have not signed the deal, and they still actually oppose the overall acquisition. However, there are still some concerns with this deal going through. So the CMA says it still has reservations about the deal as it pertains to cloud gaming. So obviously, Microsoft has a very large cloud business that they can utilize with Activision Blizzard and really take over a lot more of the cloud gaming space. So what the CMA has suggested to Microsoft is that they potentially may need to divest part, if not all, of the Call of Duty franchise. In my opinion, I think that Microsoft is going to stand hard against this. I think that they are really looking to bring the Call of Duty franchise in, and that is one of the key reasons for this acquisition. Here we have the Q3 2022 revenues for companies in the gaming industry, and we can see that Tencent is sitting here at the top with around $8 billion in revenue. Sony is here in second, Apple, Microsoft, NetEase, Google, Electronic Arts, Nintendo, and then Activision Blizzard all the way down here at 9th. So what you have is basically number 9 getting acquired by number 4. And if you look at their revenues, basically this would take them up to maybe around a, $4.5 billion in revenue per quarter. And that would jump them above Sony. And that's why Sony is so opposed to this, because basically they're seeing Microsoft come in and try and become the number one one or number two player in the gaming industry. And the last point here is the final decision from the CMA is going to come out on April 26th. And this could be a key date for whether we see the deal get approved and the stock jump up to around $95, or if we see the deal fall through and thus the stock price fall as well. So if you were to buy the stock right now at $84.39 and the deal goes through at $95, you would actually achieve a 12.57% return. And that is not too bad for only having to hold the company for around a month. And this is an arbitrage bet that even Warren Buffett likes. As of around a year ago, Berkshire Hathaway held around 9.5% of the company. Since then, they have sold out a small portion of that position. They're sitting somewhere around, I think, 6 to 7% right now of the company that they own. But this is something that I assume they're going to hold through until the deal either gets approved or denied. With all that said, I am actually a shareholder of Activision Blizzard. I actually started buying the company around $60 to $65 when the deal hadn't been announced yet. And then once the deal was announced, I actually sold out of my shares. I figured it would take some time for the deal to go through. And, basically I sat on it, didn't really do a whole lot, kept an eye on the company. And when the stock started dipping down and it started getting towards the later half of the year, I actually bought back into the company and kind of averaged into it. I think my cost basis is somewhere around $75 right now. And I'm happy with that because that gives me, around a 20 to 25% upside with the $95 price target. And I'm comfortable with that risk reward ratio in there. So obviously do not buy a company just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. This is a very specific type of play because you're basically just betting on the Microsoft deal going through. And obviously Warren Buffett feels like it will, and he has a very close relationship with Bill Gates. So I feel confident that the deal is going to go through, but like always, just do not buy a company just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. Make sure you are doing your own research and comfortable with the risk reward because your situation is going to be different than mine. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. And as always, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day.